Yeah, hello and welcome to a new video. This will also be a premiere for this channel because for this time I'll show and do some commentary on a classic game. It's not a well-known game. I actually only saw it I don't know 1 or 2 years ago because it was picked by Grandmaster Larry Christiansen for his weekly show on the ICC, where he shows some nice attacking games. And so maybe those of you also are a member of ICC might know the game, but it's still pretty unknown, um, generally speaking. Yeah, I was this game came to my mind because I played a nice Blitz game recently. The game with the number 66 in my list of Blitz games. I can also put the link in the description because it featured a line in the Sicilian that was also used in this game, and yeah, somehow this game was some sort of yeah, inspiration for me to play this line. So it's from 1979, so already more than 30 years old, but it still features a setup that is very much playable today. And this is also yeah, one positive feature of this line, because it's not so dependent on yeah, current opening fashion or something. It's more like a general concept or a setup than a specific forcing line, compared to other ways to combat Sicilian. This game is also meant to introduce a very interesting player from the past. I heavily recommend to study his games, and this is Efim Geller, Russian, or back then Soviet grandmaster. He was born in 1925 and died 1998, so 73 years old. And he was very strong player, even a contender for the World Championship title at some point, mainly in the 60s. He only had the bad luck that at exactly the same time Boris Spassky came to fame, and he simply always got Spassky as an opponent in the candidate matches and lost. Besides these results, he had a tremendous record versus world champions. It's very remarkable. He had a positive score, and a clearly positive score, not just 1 point or something, against Botvinnik, against Petrosyan, Smyslov, and even Fischer. He beat all those people, yeah, far more often than vice versa. So very remarkable. In fact, I'm not sure, but I think maybe Geller is the only player who even has a positive record against Fischer. I would need to look it up, but if you look at people who played more than, let's say, 5, 6, 7 games versus him, I don't think anyone else was such a difficult opponent. And Geller is a very interesting player to study if you're interested in various openings, because throughout his career he was very consistent with his setups, and he always tried to refine them. So if you look for interesting but solid ways to, for instance, play the Sicilian as white, or combat the Sicilian as white, or if you intend to play the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish opening, Geller is also heavily recommended. He also was very influential on the black side, for instance, of the King's Indian, the Sicilian as well, from the black side, and also the Queen's Gambit declined. Even he switched later from the King's Indian to the Queen's Gambit declined, and he has had a very very interesting way sometimes to play this fairly solid opening to obtain dynamic positions. Geller also played a crucial role in some World Championship matches as a second to Karpov. Um, I think he also was Spassky's second in the 1972 match of the century versus Fischer, because I guess they thought maybe Geller had some sort of secret how to beat Fischer, but at the end it wasn't meant to be. Geller then became Karpov's second in the matches against Korchnoi, and he's also somehow responsible for some lines that Karpov played, for instance. In the Queen's Gambit is black and the Sicilian with white. All the stuff that Karpov played against Kasparov and Korchnoi at some point was also worked out by Geller. So okay, let's get to this game. As I said, it's from 1979, and this one was one of maybe Geller's finest hour. He was already past his prime actually. He was best in the 60s. So 1979 he already was 54 years old, and he did win the Soviet Championship back then, which was a remarkable achievement because those tournaments were simply the strongest in the world. So it's quite funny if you look this tournament up, 1979 Soviet Championship. You even find Garry Kasparov in the in the tournament chart, who was 16 years old back then, and he finished third. But Geller won this tournament very nicely. Okay, the game I'm about to show, his opponent is a pretty much unknown player and international master at the time, Yuri Anikayev. I don't know him. The only thing you always need to know if you look at those games, black player was rated 2-4-55, and back then this was much stronger in comparison to today's rating, so you might as well easily add 100 or 150 points, so he would be a grandmaster easily today. So okay, Geller opens with e4, and this was his main move throughout his career. So if you're an e4 player, it's very interesting. Even today, 30-40 years old games from Geller are very interesting because he was very, he did deep research on his openings, and it's still interesting to pick up ideas. Okay, as I mentioned, it is a Sicilian and a Scheveningen variation here with the classical move order e6 d6, not a Scheveningen that is reached by the Najdorf move order with d6 and a6. Here white actually would have the opportunity to play a g4, the Keres attack, which is oftentimes seen as the main argument where this is move order. But Geller played just bishop e2, and this was his favorite setup versus all kind of Sicilians, especially against Najdorf. He always played bishop e2, almost always, and also the Scheveningen. But the nice point about this setup, I'll play a couple of moves because they're very very well known and don't need to be much commented upon. If you look at this kind of setup from the white side, this is a setup that can also be employed, for instance, versus the Tamanov variation, or sometimes you can get this kind of position from a Khan move order. Yeah, there are various ways for black to build up a position with e6 d6, and white almost always can go for a setup which is exactly like this or very similar, maybe with slight transposition of moves. So it makes some sense to pick some setup which is similar with this various lines, to have ideas to use against more than one line. It's a very large body of work if you study different setups where there's all kinds of Sicilian sub-variations. So it's a nice idea to go for something like this. Now white plays a4, which is a standard move to prevent black from playing b5. Just for instance, let's say white wouldn't play a4, would play some other move, let's say queen d2 for instance. Black might take on d4 and go for b5. So white wants to restrict this, and he also he could have done this also in the earlier moves. These move orders are very flexible. Black now played bishop d7, which is perfectly playable, but a bit out of fashion nowadays. Nowadays they mostly play queen c7 here to not to choose a square early for the bishop. This was also Kasparov's choice in all those match games versus Karpov in the 80s. But okay, bishop d7 is okay, it's playable. Now Geller played bishop f3, which is part of his setup here. White's main idea is to strengthen the center with pieces. So bishop f3 overprotects the e4 pawn and makes the center more secure. And after white has secured his center, he will choose how to proceed further. Now black played a very rare move. I think the only game I found with this move is exactly the game I'm I'm showing. So black never dared to repeat this, but this is understandable if you watch the game. He played knight a5 now. The main move here in this line also is queen c7. Yeah, and then white continues knight b3. He likes to preserve the knight and also avoids things like, let's say, king h1 takes on d4 and then e5, which also could help black freeing his game. So white drops back the knight, and then it usually continues along the lines of b6. It's also an essential move here. Black sometimes tries moves like, I don't know, rook c8, rook f8 or something. Then he always needs to be aware that white might play a5 and stops any counterplay on the queen side, as the pawn and the bishop prevent the b-pawn from moving. This kind of setup sometimes is playable for black, but I'm not sure. In this position it doesn't look very nice. White just seems to enjoy some advantage. So b6 is usually played, and then white goes for g4 with the idea of g5, then bishop c8 back to get the bishop to b7, g5, knight d7. This was also a main point of putting the bishop back to get the square for the knight, and then white continues bishop g2. If you look at my blitz game, or you watched it already, this mentioned one a couple of days ago, the white position is exactly identical to this blitz game. So I just set up this kind of formation, and only black's pieces were somewhat different, but only slightly. I'm not completely sure how it was, but just one or two slight differences. And white's further attacking plan usually consists of switching the rook to h3 and then queen h5, attacking on the king side. So this rather slow build-up often leads to real attacking games. It's just let's say a delay in the attacking process. It's not as direct as some other lines where white just tries to hack through to the king immediately. Here he just first secures his position a bit and then tries to get active play against the king. So let's get back to the game. He played knight a5. It's not an uncommon idea to try to get the knight to c4, but here it is not really justified, and we will see why that is the case. White now played queen e2, a good move to protect versus knight c4 for the moment. Queen just controls the square, and black plays queen c7, which makes sense, of course, to have the move knight c4 again. And now we see after Geller's next move why this whole setup is really problematic. He now played g4, which we already saw in another line I showed a couple of moments ago. But here black has a problem that his setup is somewhat congested, so to say. This knight on f6 doesn't have a good retreating square, and he also didn't want to play bishop c8 now, everything back, so to say, because this regrouping and knight f5 doesn't really fit together. He now played rook c8 in order to avoid after g5 that g5 knight e8 that the rook is bad on f8, so he moved the rook to c8. Also, I think he was still hoping to get some play along the c file, but now it's going very quickly, and this was one thing which really impressed me about this game, how quickly black really got into huge trouble here. White played g5 now, knight back, didn't have another square, and now f5. So just in 3 moves we see g4, g5, f5. It was very quickly, and black now already has got really very concrete and difficult problems to solve. He played now knight c4. Okay, he didn't you can't play all these moves and then never go to c4, so it makes sense somehow. But if you look at passive moves or defensive moves, for instance, let's say queen d8, with the idea of also attacking g5, then white would just simply take on e6, then bishop g4, the e6 pawn is very vulnerable, knight c7 to protect this pawn, and then just h4, and we see that white has just a very strong position. Black still is not able to play knight c4, this knight is offside on a5, and white can just strengthen his position. The knight on d4, for instance, is very annoying, always pressurizing e6, and black cannot play e6, e5, because this would just open up the position even more for piece to come to f5, especially the knight. So white now has a free hand to just build up further. Let's say he can double rooks. He could switch the queen over to get more pressure on e6, and this is just terrible to defend. So knight c4 I think is the right move to at least get some kind of activity. And now we see also a strong move, bishop to h5. This bishop on f3, which made a somewhat passive maybe impression. It just had the row to protect d4, now enters the attack, and there's a very concrete threat now. Bishop takes f7. This is very strong. So if black now plays knight takes e3, then white would smash through here with bishop takes f7. King needs to take, and then f takes e6 is a double check, the rook on f1 and the pawn, so he needs to retreat. And now white has a very strong move again, queen takes e3. He could also take on d7, there's also some advantage, but queen takes e3 is just completely crushing. If black now tries to save his bishop on d7, which is attacked, then white enters on the 7th rank with rook f7, and he is just able to get all pieces towards the king and go for mate. This is just a lost position. Let's continue just a few moves. Let's say g6 in order to maybe play at least the knight to g7, and queen h3. If he is playing knight g7 now, then queen h6 just wins. So h5 takes, and it's just horrible. Black gets completely blown away. It's quite interesting. If you've got some time, maybe go through these lines. It's very nice to see that Black gets completely crushed here. The rook on the 7th and the pawn on e6 are just deadly. Okay, so Black played g6. This is the best move in the position to at least put up some resistance. And of course now it's very logical. White opens up the f-file. Black needs to take. If he would take with the h-pawn, it's actually worse in comparison, because White immediately goes on to f7, and things would run similar as in the game, but there's just a pawn on f7 that falls. Look at the game and then compare this. You will see that this is much worse. So he took with the f-pawn, and now the nice intermediate move, queen f2, directly going to f7, and this square is not at all easy to protect. If knight e5 was played, if Black would take now, then White could, for starters, play this, threatening rook f8 mate, and I don't see a move actually. It's just lost, I think. So knight to e5. It's very sensible to cover f7. And now a strong move again. It's not difficult to find, but still strong and very thematic, because Black's best defensive piece is clearly the knight. So White plays knight f3 to remove this and finally enter on f7. So if he takes the bishop now on h5, you just take e5 and enter f7. So Black played knight to g7, it's the best defense. And now White could take here. And rook f8. This was Black's idea. But White has a strong continuation. It would be much worse now to move the queen or retreat a piece. It is just the best move to play knight to f7. And here you see that the knight will take up a very strong post on h6. h6 is, or h3 if you see it with colors reversed, is often a very strong attacking square, as it controls squares very near the king, g8, f7, and often assists in different mating motifs. We will see some in the game. Black now made the decisive mistake, as his position is very difficult anyway. What he should play now is g takes h5, which looks really ugly, of course, but this would still put up quite some resistance. For instance, White would play knight h6, check, king in the corner, queen g3, with the idea of playing g6, open up the position even more. So Black goes for bishop to e8 to cover this, and then for instance taking rook to f1 with tempo. f8 is hanging with a mate threat, so needs to cover this. And then for instance queen f3, threatening queen takes f8 mate. You see the knight assisting. Bishop e7, and then for instance bishop to d4. White still has a very strong attacking position, but if you check this with the computer, for instance, it doesn't find a really forced win. It is still dreadful to play, but it's not a mate in X moves or White winning a piece or something. So this would be the way to put up some resistance. But in this position, Black now took with the knight. This is a natural move, of course. And now White has a very, very nice finish. And also a nice yeah, nice mating pattern, so to say. It's now really white is winning almost the whole set of pieces, or delivering mate. And the key move is knight d5. Very often the knight sacrifice on d5 is strong in the Sicilian, and this is, yeah, really no exception. Yeah, black needs to take. There's nothing else, as e7 is also hanging with check, so he needs to take this. And now it's very nice. Knight to h6 check. King g7. And now we see one of the mating patterns I have promised. Queen to f7 check. Rook takes. He doesn't have anything else. Rook takes. King to h8. Bishop d4. And now we see the point of knight d5. Knight d5 was just played to have this check here and to prevent e6, e5. So if you imagine the same position with the rook, with the pawn still on e6, and the knight on c3, black would play e5 and would secure his position. And now this check comes with all its force. Black needs to, of course, put a piece on f6. He doesn't have anything else. And now the finishing touch, rook takes f7. It's just very nice. If the knight takes now, of course, it's bishop takes f7 mate. Very nice mate. And this shows also the strength of the knight on h6 as an attacking piece. This is also a mating pattern to remember. The knight on h6 or h3 and the bishop on the long diagonal. This happens not frequently. Would be nice if it would happen so often and you would win game after game in this fashion. But it's nice to remember this, that you oftentimes just need a very strong bishop and this knight hopping to h6 and h3 to build up a nice mate. Okay, so rook takes f6. Let's have a look again. The problem here is just that rook f8 is also a deadly mate threat with a double check. So black cannot run also. If he would try to for instance king g7. This is just mate in one with a double check. The only move to somewhat continue here is knight to g7. And then rook f7, threatening bishop g7 mate again. The knight on h6, always taking the g8 square. And then let's say rook to g8, takes with check, only move, rook f8, rook g8, and rook takes g8 mate. The rook and knight combination is just deadly for the king. So let's recap this combination quickly. White starts with knight d5 to distract the pawn here, and then just enters with its pieces, delivering this deadly check. This was all done to get this check in, and very, very important that white needed to see rook takes f6, of course, with the threat rook f8, and preserving the bishop to deliver the final check on the long diagonal. So in the game, after rook takes f7, black resigned. Yeah, very nice attacking display. It shows that you can really get strong attacking positions even with fairly solid looking setups. You don't always need to play the absolute most sharp stuff that you can find with long castle and everything forwards, so to say. It's sometimes interesting to study a somewhat slower looking build-up, which nevertheless has got some aggressive ideas behind it. So I can recommend to study this kind of setup like this here. If you look for ways to play against the Sicilian without studying so much heavy theory, because if you, for instance, just pick out, let's say 10 or 20 of Gallo's games, he played this kind of setup against the Knight of Scheveningen, I don't think 40-50 times or something, really a lot of games. If you pick out let's say 10 or 20 of them and play through them carefully, you would have a very nice yeah, very nice starting point to build up in repertoire against this kind of line. You could also, and should also, of course, have a look at current games. This line is played, of course, even nowadays by very strong grandmasters. If you look at, for instance, Michael Adams, he plays this regularly and played some very nice games also with this opening. And also, let's say Nigel Short. Still, he plays all kinds of obscure stuff nowadays, but once in a while he goes back to classic main lines, and then you might also find this setup. So it's an interesting alternative to the very sharp stuff. Um, yeah, yeah, I'm at the end of the game. Yeah, thanks for watching. And if you want to get some more information about Geller as a player, or some by yeah, some further information, like a biography and stuff, I'll link to Wikipedia in the description. And yeah, thanks for watching, and also be welcome to make more suggestions about new videos, and of course all other comments or questions are also welcome. Yeah, thanks for watching, and till the next video. I think tomorrow I'll make a couple of more Blitz games. I just wasn't in the mood today. Yeah, see ya.